Welcome back, Junior Chickies. So we are on our next section for ecology. We are going to look at feeding relationships. So organisms need energy for the 7 life processes to take place. So plants produce their own food. That's why they are known as producers. Where other organisms cannot produce their own food and has to rely on other organisms as an energy source. And they are known as consumers. So let's have a look at what types of consumers we will find. So they are divided into 4 groups. Firstly, we will have herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, and lastly, decomposers. So what is a herbivore? So a herbivore is an organism that feeds only on plant materials to obtain energy. So let's have a look at a few examples. Here we have a male buffalo, and they can actually weigh up to 850 kilograms. Then we have an eland, which the height from the foot to the shoulder can be up to 1.6 meters. And an elephant, and something interesting is that an elephant carries its fetus for 22 months. Then we have a black and a white rhino. So the black rhino is unfortunately completely extinct, where we only have 18,000 left of the white rhino. The black rhino has a pointed lip and the white rhino has a flat lip, and that is also the rhino which you will see on our 10 Rand note. So the carnivore is organisms that will feed on other animal materials to obtain energy. So these are your predators, which hunt their food like a leopard or a lion. Or you can also have insectivores, which only feeds off of insects, like the aardwolf and even chameleons. Then you also have scavengers, which eats dead animal materials, like a vulture, jackal, crows, or even the hyena. So the omnivores are organisms which feeds on both plants and animal materials. These are baboons, vervet monkeys, the warthog, and then us, obviously, humans. So lastly, on the top of the food chain, basically, we have the decomposers. So they break down dead plant and animal materials. So they will recycle the nutrients back into the soil. So this includes maggots, ants, dung beetles, earthworms, and also fungi. So let's have a look at energy flow within an ecosystem. So how energy flows from one organism to the next. So firstly, plants and algae plays a very important role in the ecosystem, as they have the ability to capture sun energy or sunlight through the process of photosynthesis to produce their own food. So this energy is passed along something called a food chain. So it will move from a producer, which is a plant, to a consumer, which is an organism that lives off of the plant as a food source. So there can be or will be a number of organisms present in a food chain. And this is an example that you will notice at the bottom of the rainforest animals. We can also add the decomposers as the last link of our food chain, something like a mushroom which breaks down dead plant and animal tissues. I've spoken now about a food chain, but let's have a look at what is a food chain and how to make your own. So a food chain indicates how energy flows from one organism to the next. So firstly, we will have the producer, which produces their own food. Then we have the primary consumer, the secondary consumer, which obtains its energy from the primary consumer. Lastly, we have the tertiary consumer, which obtains its energy from the secondary consumer. It can also be known as trophic level 1 if it's the producer, trophic level 2 for the primary consumer. My secondary consumer is trophic level 3, and then lastly we have trophic level number 4. So then you will notice arrows in between these organisms. So the arrows will indicate the flow of energy from one organism to the next. Then we have a second way of explaining or identifying or organizing a food chain, and that's a pyramid. So the bottom section of the pyramid is your first trophic level, and this will contain your producer. Then we will move over to your trophic level number 2, which is your primary consumer, and that actually obtains less energy as the little sections become smaller. Then we move over to trophic level number 3 and trophic level number 4, which is your tertiary consumer. Then, something important to remember is that organisms will use 90% of the energy which they obtain from food for cell respiration. Then, the 10% will be carried or transferred to the next trophic level. So if I can use an example, if a plant produces 10,000 joules of energy, only 1,000 will be transferred to trophic level number 2. And the math is quite easy. You're going to take 10,000 times by 10%, which gives you 1,000 joules. Then what is transferred to trophic level number 3 is going to be 1,000 times by 10% to give you 100 joules. And then so on to get to the trophic level number 4, where we have 10 joules, where it is 100 times 10%. And it's very important to write J afterwards, as energy is measured in joules. Lastly, we will move over to a food web. So a food web is literally a connection of food chains. So you will see and notice a few food chains that's intertwined and interlinked with one another. So you always start with your producer, which is number 1. And then I can ask in a question for a food chain with 4 trophic levels. So you want 4 organisms involved in that food chain. So you will start with the tree, for example, move on to the deer, the snake, and the eagle, which is 4 organisms. Or even 3, where it is the grass, the mouse, and the snake, or even the eagle, which then classifies as a food chain which is 3 trophic levels long. And that is it for today's topic. Please make sure to watch my next video.